Oh, it's Bradley and Dan back with you here on the Player Profiler Now Plus Network. Dan and I are recording here Wednesday, October 29th, and it's so good to be back in the saddle, Dan. StackHunters is normally an off-season podcast, but we are going to talk some player rankings. We're going to talk some players. We're going to talk some ball here, middle of the season. You've been hopping on the fantasy empire. How's that been going during the season for the people? Tell us.
Oh, it's the show is great fun. It is for high stakes viewers, and it's also for regular stakes viewers and for no stakes viewers. I mean, it's fantasy football. Everything that we're talking about is pretty relevant to most any league, and so we get Chris Vaccaro, Nelson Sousa, Matt Modica, and myself, three really great high stakes players, and me. And we
Dan, you're cutting yourself short here.
And we talk a lot
four
of
very
football.
good, very elite high stakes players. That's right.
Yes, very elite high stakes players, and so we're diving into every aspect of fantasy football, roster management, and looking ahead, and trying to figure out like which players are actually talented and have a chance to be meaningful down the road, all that good stuff. And one day we hope to be invited to the Player Profiler Plus network, but for now we're on the just regular Player Profiler network. So I feel like I've gotten a promotion today, Bradley, because I'm on the Plus network.
Yeah, it's the bonus. It's the plus. We get the plus next to it. Welcome back to the Plus for the in-season edition.
Yes.
But Dan, it's going to be great chopping it up. One of the controversial, we'll just get into some players because I really do want to talk about some surprises for this year. One of the players that in our PPR rest of season rankings on Player Profiler who is majorly surprised. This is a player that had a lot of fanfare in the offseason because of the chatter from the team. He was brought in as a free agent, really struggled in Denver the last couple of years. The injuries, of course, he looked slow. He was catching a lot of passes, but the Sean Payton offense was not doing a lot for him. He gets a new location in Dallas, and Javonte Williams is right now the RB5 in total points and RB8 in fantasy points per game, 9 total touchdowns. He is crushing it. He's on pace to have about the same number of receptions as he had each of the last couple of years in the Sean Payton offense, and he's averaging 5.1 yards per carry. So rest of season rankings on Player Profiler, he's the RB6, rest of season. Going into 2025, I would have called Bradley Stalder on that. I would have called baloney on that. I would have said, no way, Javonte Williams. There would never be a scenario where Javonte Williams, he would have needed so many things to go right. He would have needed to be healthy. He would have needed to catch passes. The Dallas offense needed to have been good. He needed to have beaten out Miles Sanders and Jaden Blue. But guess what? That parlay all hit in the first half of the season. And right now, we're staring down a possible league winner because of where you had drafted Javonte Williams. Dan, your reactions to Javonte being the RB6 in Player Profiler's rest of season PPR rankings for running back?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably accurate. I mean, the Dallas offense is a good one. The Dallas defense is a bad one, which puts a lot of pressure on them to score. That's what we want to see. Dak is a quarterback who has no problem checking it down to a running back if need be. He's in a run scheme and a blocking scheme that fits his talents. And, so everything has been really wheels up. And, back in, when we were doing all of our best ball drafts, it was like everybody was kind of pushing him down because, he hasn't been good since his knee injury. And, sometimes you got to say, well, what if that's wrong? What if that is wrong? And I've got, I was willing to say that a lot early in the year. And I have a lot of teams that are doing quite well because I was willing to say, what if that's wrong? This price here isn't going to kill anybody. We're drafting him in the 8th, 9th, 10th round. If he busts, he busts. It's okay.
Right. The draft cost was just so low for a player who the drumbeat started out pretty slow in the offseason, especially since they signed him and they signed Miles Sanders, and then they drafted a day 3 back with Jaden Blue, and there was also like a few other running backs in the depth chart that maybe were gonna, create some noise. But Javonte Williams, he looks healthy, he looks good, he has all the opportunity. And when it comes to running backs, are they healthy and are they getting a lot of opportunity? And the answer for Javonte is absolutely yes. He's number 5 among running backs in weighted opportunity, number 5 in red zone touches, number 4 in targets, number 5 in carries, and number 2 in total touchdowns. So this is a player who is getting all the opportunity. Doesn't matter, red zone, end zone, goal line, the whole bit. And the juice is back. He's number 8 in breakaway runs and number 9 in evaded tackles. So there's a player who has not just the opportunity stats, but also the efficiency metrics that are matching what we're seeing here. So the opportunity is there. Javonte Williams, not crazy. And he's ahead of Josh Jacobs right now in the rest of season rankings, ahead of Derrick Henry, ahead of James Cook, ahead of
Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley, ahead of Ashton Genty. Like that's pretty wild that he's that high, So
right. And here's the thing. I mean, because not to make myself sound too smart, because I have plenty of teams also with Jadon Blue on them. And those teams not performing quite as well, not always Jadon Blue's fault, sometimes, but he's not helping. But that's the beauty of best ball is, you're drafting a lot of teams. You're not trying to, I don't want to finish in 4th place in a bunch of leagues. I want to finish first, or I don't care what the finish is.
It's true.
11th, 12th, whatever, And so you draft and you say, you know what, I'm going to tell myself a story with this team. And some I told the story that Javonte Williams was going to be the lead back. Some I told the story that Jadon Blue was going to be the lead back. And the Javonte Williams is working out for me.
Javonte Williams is working out. And Dan, another player that I think is going to work out, another mid-round running back. His rest of season PPR ranking is 15th right now, only 6.5 fantasy points per game, but that's because an injury happened last week in week 8. Cam Scadaboo, pour one out for the Scadaboo. He not only had a dislocated ankle, but multiple other injuries. There's a fracture in his leg. It's a really tough look. But rest of season, on player profiler for PPR, Tyrone Tracy pegs in as a high-end RB2. And last year, we got a glimpse of what Tyrone Tracy could do if he was given a larger workload. And now he's in a prime spot. Is 15 the right place for him to be ahead of a Breece Hall, ahead of Jalen Warren, ahead of David Montgomery? Like, is that the right spot for a Tyrone Tracy, or is that just like maybe we're putting too much volume into the projection for Tracy?
Yeah, I think one of the problems that Tracy is going to have is he's proven to be not real great at the goal line, and I think probably Devin Singletary might pull in some of that role. So yeah, I think this is kind of an enthusiastic ranking, shall we say, of Tracy. I would probably prefer to have Jalen Warren rest of schedule, Breece Hall most likely, though that offense is just utterly horrible, and that's really holding Hall back. But and then you can drop down, even like Chase Brown. I think I would rather have, J.K. Dobbins might rather have too. So But the thing is, if everything does break right for Tracy, he's gonna do well. I mean, he's gonna be a guy who's appearing in your lineups, fairly frequently, whether he visits the end zone a lot or not, because he is going to be involved in the passing game, and that always helps. Keep those stats up where they need to be.
Yeah, the volume is going to be there. He's able to catch some passes. We saw that last year, and we did see some spike weeks, even though it seems like the Giants are just every couple weeks they're losing really important players on their team. Like we saw Malik Neighbors go down. Scadaboo was clearly becoming a major presence in this offense, and now both players out the rest of the season with serious injuries. The ACL tear, of course, for Neighbors. I agree with you. This offense could be in a little bit of trouble, and Tracy maybe. I think he's more of like a back end RB2 instead of a high end RB2 moving forward. You're going to get the volume, but the efficiency, the metrics were just not there for Tracy either, even in the limited samples that we saw this year. He's 33rd in juke rate, 43rd in explosive play rating, right there. It's just not giving the vibes of like, even in the smaller sample plays, Tracy's not quite getting to where he's going to make that difference, from an efficiency perspective. So I think we move Tracy down. I'll talk to Evan. I'll send some feedback later. But a player that is even further down the list, and this is kind of, a surprise in terms of what this player has been doing for the duration of his career. This is a veteran on a really, really, really bad team. There's not much else that's going to interfere with Alvin Kamara getting a lot of volume. He's number 6 in targets, and he's number 10 in weighted opportunity right now. But Kendry Miller's out for the rest of the season with an injury. They're making a quarterback change, though, and it could just get worse. Like, I don't think your New Orleans offense gets better with Tyler Shuck instead of Spencer Rattler. But maybe because Miller is out the rest of the season, we're going to see an uptick in Kamara's volume. He only had 6 carries against Tampa and has been outside the top 20 of running backs the majority of the season on a weekly basis. So is Kamara someone that you're okay flexing, or is it just matchup dependent now because of the ceiling is so low for Alvin Kamara?
I mean, most of the time, Kamara is probably, if you're loaded at running back, you're going to be fine. But, with all the injuries and everything that happen and bye weeks and all that kind of stuff, I have Kamara in a couple places. I did not draft very much of him. But, he's a guy that definitely makes it into my starting lineup, probably more frequently than I would like. But, beggars can't be choosers, and
Sure.
He does provide a floor, to my scoring as well. I think the days of Kamara scoring, 2-3 touchdowns a week are long gone. That's just not happening anymore. The days of Kamara, lapping the field at running back and in targets, I think those days are gone too. So he's kind of a diminished version of himself. But we're doing the best we can with what we got there.
we're squeezing as much juice out of the metaphorical Alvin Kamara towel that is left from previous seasons.
Yes, exactly. It's like the towel that's been hanging in the wind all day long. There's not a whole lot to squeeze out of it anymore, but we're getting what we can.
Yeah, we are getting what we can from Alvin Kamara, but there's not much juice left in that juice box, the metaphorical juice box. Okay, we're going to talk about one more player before we take our break, and that's going to be an up and down wide receiver. This entire offense has experienced ups and downs. It's perhaps one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL. And hopefully tomorrow, Thursday, we'll see Lamar Jackson back. But wide receiver Zay Flowers has just experienced the ups and downs of the season. And you would think that a player who consistently gets a 25% target share would be crushing it. But right now, he only has one touchdown in the season. He's wide receiver 24. He's back to less than 12 yards per reception, whereas last year, over 14, right? And maybe that gets right with Lamar back in the lineup, and we see Zay stretch the field a little bit more because he is number 16 in explosive plays, number 17 wide receiver in receiving explosive play rating. And he's been getting a lot of the targets, but the receiving yards aren't there. He's had, games of 3 points and 8 points, and we're really waiting for that ceiling game ever since week 1, where he scored 28 points, 7 for 143 on 9 targets. So we really have been missing out on Zay Flowers. Do you think that week 9 and beyond, with a healthy Lamar, we're going to see Zay Flowers maybe creep into the top 12 pretty consistently? Right now, rest of season, he's wide receiver 20, Dan.
I think wide receiver 20 is probably a pretty fair rank for him because of the fact that, we can easily explain away what happened before because he had some terrible quarterback play, but some things are not going to change with Lamar Jackson back. And what's not going to change is that they're using more in the short and intermediate areas of the field. So when he gets those, longer plays, they typically are plays where he's getting yards after the catch. And, he's just eventually getting tracked down by, a couple safeties or cornerbacks or whatever. He's also not the player that they really like to go to in the red zone. When they get down there, there's a lot more of Isaiah Likely. There's a lot more of Mark Andrews. There's a lot of Derrick Henry. There's even some Justice Hill, and even some Rashad Bateman, who is a little bit bigger of a target. So, he's got a lot of pressure there that's kind of, they're all taking those end zone targets, and he's not really getting those. And that's what makes it difficult for him to really, truly ascend. I mean, I think he's kind of a Stephon Diggs type of player in a lot of ways, but Diggs has never had as much trouble getting usage in the red zone as what Flowers has had. And so that's what we're seeing here, I think.
Yeah, we look at the season, he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 1. And that's really what's going to drive his targets are almost always there. We look at, this year, he's number 7 among wide receivers in target share, number 11 in target rate. So that does exist, but it's the deep targets. He's 26th among receivers in deep targets, 70th in target depth, 24th in air yard share. So yes, there's a lot of yards after the catch. That's Zay Flowers' game. He catches the ball close to the line of scrimmage, makes moves, but when those deep targets aren't occasionally there, Lamar likes to take his shots, a couple every game, to whether it's Zay or whether it's Bateman, or he'll take a shot to Hopkins. But when you have Tyler Huntley and Cooper Rush at quarterback, they'll throw it short to Zay Flowers, but not in the arsenal for those quarterbacks are the deep targets. So we're going to look at Zay Flowers as maybe a bounce back candidate, getting more ceiling play in the second half of the season. I'm a little bullish on second half Zay Flowers as long as Lamar is healthy.
And also having that terrible defense is going to help out because it's going to put pressure on them to score. You want your players in a fantasy carnival, and Baltimore could be that.
Yeah, that's actually another one of the underrated storylines of this year is how Baltimore has just, been beat up. They've been banged up, but also just frankly not played well on the defensive side, leading to, maybe games that have gotten away from them here as the season has gone on. Well, as the season goes on, there's a great opportunity for you to play some DFS here on Fast Draft. So let's hear about the Quick 6 Super Slam.
Pour one out for an incredible best ball season. It was a breakout 2025 for Fast Draft, but now the NFL action has started. That means it's DFS season. That's right. You might think, oh, wow, DFS, I can't win DFS. Oh, but you can on Fast Draft. You just pick any 6 guys and you put them in a handful of booster spots. There's no salary rubric you have to follow. You're not going up against thousands of killer bots in these tournaments. Oh, no. These are regular people grabbing their 6 favorite plays of the week, and that's all you have to do. And we post the ownership so that you can choose how much chalk you want. There is no drafting. It's called the Quick 6 Super Slam. The Quick 6 Super Slam is the signature DFS contest at Fast Draft. It is changing DFS. We are making DFS great again. So go to fastdraft.app and use your host promo code for a $50 deposit match, and let's go start drafting faster.
That's right. Download Fast Draft at fastdraft.app. Use promo code STACK for a 100% deposit match up to $50. Dan.
Fun, quick, and easy. I mean, what else do you want? I always put in a few lineups every week. So, it's like, why wouldn't you?
Especially because at this point, Dan, like we've figured out that some of our best ball teams have gone to the crapper. Like we know that 12th place team doesn't stand a chance after, season-ending injuries to half of the team, and the bye weeks still haven't hit. You're going to take some zeros across the board. Oh yeah,
Yep.
there's been some major injuries that have affected. But if that happened to you, start fresh. Week 9 on Fast Draft.
Right, and you get that instant result too. I mean, the contest is over by the end of Sunday night, so it's like you know where you stand. You can enter on Sunday morning and see your results on Sunday night.
Oh, you love to see it. You love to see it. You know what else you love to see, Dan? Even though there have been some season-ending injuries on this team, one of the wide receivers has really stepped up. At least it seems like a season-ending injury for Mike Evans. Like that, the 1,000 yards is, that streak's going to end. Unfortunately, I really don't see a pathway for that. And Godwin continues to just not play. You have Jalen McMillan out for a long time. Emeka Egbuka, though, he is the wide receiver 7 in total points, and he is the wide receiver 12 in fantasy points per game. Yeah, he's only caught almost half of his pass, like 55% catch rate, but he is the rest of season wide receiver 8 for fantasy football. Wow. Number 2 among receivers in explosive plays. Oh, number 1 in deep targets. Baker Mayfield is looking his way time and again. And it's not just the Mike Evans deep routes, because Mike Evans is a big body guy. He's like, 6'4"? He can go up and get it. No, Emeka Egbuka is 6'1", 202. Not a huge guy, but they, out of training camp, the Buccaneers were saying this guy's like a running back. He catches the ball. He moves so smoothly. It's dangerous. Like, imagine trying to catch Saquon in the open field running routes. But he's a wide receiver instead of being, by trade, a running back. Egbuka, wide receiver 7 total points. Oh, those who drafted Egbuka, he was a round 5 guy for a long time. And then the ADP continued to creep up and creep up and creep up, but still paying off majorly in the first half of the season. Is he a top 8 wide receiver rest of season, Dan?
I think there's a pretty good chance that he is. I mean, we know that Baker Mayfield is going to keep chucking the ball, and I think when Bucky Irving comes back, that actually helps their pass game out a little bit. So, right now, I think his main problem is that he has become, basically the alpha receiver, which we always kind of hoped that, that was going to be Evans or Godwin or whatever, and he'd be running around getting a little bit less defensive attention. Now he's having to adjust to that defensive attention. But, Baker does trust him. He's throwing him he's giving him a lot of targets. There are some times where it's kind of a, screw it, he's down there somewhere, I'm throwing the ball.
Right.
So that's part of the reason why his catch rate isn't that high. But, this was, again, a guy, that you could kind of like Javonte Williams. You could tell yourself stories about, how, this is, the third or fourth wide receiver on this team, and he's never going to amount to anything because Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving and, but sometimes you just got to bet on talent. And also when the coaching staff is raving about that talent the entire offseason, that tells you, you know what, maybe I should be buying into this just at least a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned there's so much more meat still left on the bone. Dan, Emeka Egbuka, number 2 in unrealized air yards.
Yes, I did not know that, but that is not surprising.
Number 12 in yards after the catch, number 7 in receiving yards, 19 in yards per route run. So there's a lot of positive. Like, if we're redrafting for 2026, like, I'm just thinking of way too early drafts already. Like, Egbuka is a round 2 player.
Yeah.
Like, he's a top 24 selection for next year. Yeah.
I think so. I think he's definitely got to be in consideration there. We'll see what happens in the offseason and how the Buccaneers reshape themselves, and what role Mike Evans or Chris Godwin might or might not have there. But I think that you got to be looking at Egbuka as being definitely back into the second round.
Yeah, like the question is for me, like, Egbuka or Rashee Rice?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I'd probably go Rice under those circumstances, but Egbuka is definitely in that conversation. The question with Rice is just how much farther can he go, and I hope Bradley is still there. But if he's not, we're gonna.
I am.
There we are. Okay.
The camera just froze for a second, so I had to figure things out.
All right. Yeah, I knew your camera was frozen, but I was like, hopefully he's still there.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think Rice does need to still go ahead of Egbuka, but maybe Egbuka becomes like a top 18, top 20 play even. Like, if we were thinking about like what 2025 was giving us, could it be that Egbuka is like Ladd McConkey?
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good comp for him. And McConkey was going, again, late second round. So that makes a lot of sense. I think we're going to see a pretty good number of running backs again in 2026. In the first 2 rounds, I think people have really figured out that they want to play some sort of a hero RB build a lot of the time. There will still be those 0 RB teams. There'll still be a few people who are, going out to the Sizzler for dinner and building their robust RB teams. But I think that most people are going to do a lot of hero RB and then, kind of hit the wide receivers and, perhaps a tight end, perhaps a quarterback, and then, get the running backs a little later.
Yeah, I think that you're going to see a lot of those later running backs, because you could see like a Derrick Henry falling to round 3, round 4. You could see, I mean, depends on the vibes around the Browns, but you could see a Quinshon Judkins being a round 3 guy.
Yeah, you could be talking about Dead Zone Derrick. I mean,
it's possible. Like, Saquon Barkley could fall into round 2, like at that 1-2 turn. Like, if there's legitimate concern, I think it is becoming a little flatter as we're approaching 2026. I know we're halfway through, but there's been chinks in the armor for Saquon Barkley moving forward. So those have been exposed.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right, Dan, we're going to shift to everyone's favorite position, tight end. One of the rookies has really come on strong this year. And no, we're not talking about Tyler Warren, because we knew Tyler Warren was going to be this rookie sensation. We knew that he was going to get involved pretty quickly. Michael Pittman was doing well. We knew what pedigree he had. Josh Downs was a quality player, but the concerns were he's going to get pulled off the field with a tight end like Tyler Warren. And so Warren's been crushing, but that's not the rookie tight end that everyone has been wondering, should I put him in my lineup? Heck, as we're recording this live, I get a text message from my sister who doesn't play much. She's in one league where, she's asking my advice every year. Who should I draft? And I give her the friends and family discount for fantasy advice. But she wants to know about Oronde Gadsden. And Gadsden's been absolutely crushing over the last few weeks for the Chargers. Tyler Conklin has become an afterthought in this Chargers offense. And Gadsden is now the tight end 7 in fantasy points per game. And he's the tight end 12 in total points. He is number 2 in explosive plays among all tight ends and number 1 in explosive tight end rating. So what are we supposed to do with Oronde Gadsden? Is this a small sample teaser where we fall into this trap of, wow, he's had some really good targets and he's been doing this and that? Or is this a trap? Is he the real deal? Or is he the trap, Dan? How are you approaching Oronde Gadsden?
Gadzooks, it's Gadsden. Yes. Yeah, I'm in on Gadsden. I think this is a real phenomenon that is going to continue. I don't know if it's going to continue at the massive level that we've seen, but I think he's going to be a very startable tight end every week. I think he's definitely entrenched in this offense at this point. And a lot of people have trouble understanding, like the Tucker Crafts and the Oronde Gadsdens, because you look at all these wide receivers crawling all over the field, and you're like, how can this guy get enough targets to be relevant? And I think of it as kind of being like, okay, you're on the freeway and it's rush hour, but all these wide receivers are stuck in rush hour traffic because they're fighting each other for targets.
Right.
But over here is the express lane, and that's where the tight ends can run if they have the skills. If they don't have the skills, they're going to be right over there with the other, wide receivers fighting for those targets. But if they're a guy like Kraft or Gadsden who has real run after the catch skills, who, has a lot of, a fair amount of mass and really good velocity, what that equals is momentum. You recall that from your physics, right, Bradley?
Oh, yes. Right? Torque. Give me some torque. Come on, Dan.
There you go. But, that's an equation that works very well for offenses. And that offensive coordinators like using that equation. They're like, yes, I like that momentum equation. And so they feature that tight end, So that's why you're going to see, Golden struggling for targets in Green Bay. Doubs struggling for targets in Green Bay. Watson probably struggling some for targets in Green Bay. And all of a sudden for the Chargers, we saw Quentin Johnson struggling for targets. And, I don't think it's going to always be Quentin Johnson. I think sometimes it's going to be Keenan Allen struggling for targets as well. But what that does is it gives the offense a cheat code because they've got this big dude who can run down the seam, catch the ball, and then he becomes a wrecking ball once he's got that ball in his hands. And, so it's going to keep going. They're not going to all of a sudden shove him off to the side. He's a mismatch. And that's what offenses are going to continue to take advantage of.
Yeah, the Chargers have done something different this year than they have done in the past under Jim Harbaugh or under almost any Harbaugh offense. You date back to the San Francisco days, and then you go to the University of Michigan days. And even last year, what does the Harbaugh offense do? They run the ball down people's throats. They are not known for their passing attack. But what's happened this year, Dan, the Chargers are number 1 in the NFL in team pass plays per game. So not only do you have a tight end who is getting a respectable target share, and he's only played, like, we look at the game logs, he's only played more than 55% of snaps 3 games. Like, he has only taken a stranglehold of the tight end snaps the last 3 weeks, and he is number 8 in air yard share among tight ends, number 5 in target depth, number 4 in deep targets. This is a player who is immediately part of not only a big, not only is he making big plays down the field, but also his team is just giving more opportunities to everybody, which is why you're seeing some weeks are Quentin Johnston weeks. Some weeks are Keenan Allen weeks. Some weeks are Ladd McConkey weeks. And it's not exclusive. It's not just one player is getting fed. You saw McConkey and Gadsden get fed, and you have Allen and Johnston having games. You have multiple players in this Chargers offense that you mentioned create mismatches. So who is it going to be? You just don't know who the Chargers are going to target majorly, or who they can use near the goal line or down the field for big plays that translate into fantasy points. So Gadsden, I agree with you, is one of those players that, yeah, he can be an absolute mismatch for a team. And we saw 7 targets last week, but he was shut out in the second half.
Yeah, they didn't need to run anymore, or didn't need to pass anymore. That was
Right.
the problem. But that's one thing with the Chargers too. Their pass rate over expectation, given on any given down and distance, is near the top of the league, and that's not what we all expected. With the Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman offense. But you know what? They're leaning into their strengths, and right now that strength is Justin Herbert and his ability to deal. And then you've got this wrecking ball tight end, and then you've got a really fast wide receiver in Quentin Johnson, who can make all sorts of plays. And then Ladd McConkey, who's working the middle of the field. So it's all working out for him, and it's really opening up things for the running game too. So Kamani Vidal having himself a game a lot of times.
Yeah, it's all working for the Chargers right now. One last player we'll talk about before we close out for tonight, Dan, is a player who's missed the last few games, and the clamor has kind of stalled, but he's expected back for Week 9, and there's been trade rumors of Jakobi Meyers. There's been trade. There's demands. There's teams that are interested in acquiring another wide receiver. I mean, yeah, the Giants aren't in contention, but if they make any sort of a run or have interest in that, like, they need some wide receiver help. Other teams need it too. Like, whether it's New England or Buffalo, they could be looking at a Jakobi Meyers. But Brock Bowers has been pretty quiet this year. Only 4 games. He's tight end 11 in fantasy points per game. Yes, he left the Chicago game with an injury, only ran 17 routes in that game. But this was the tight end 1 being drafted this year. Now it's Trey McBride, who was my tight end 1, and I had Bowers at 2. So it wasn't like, I wasn't like fading Bowers to the ends of the earth, but when we were talking about buying low on a player, is Brock Bowers the type of player that you want to be targeting? Like, the manager may be frustrated that he hasn't been able to play Bowers the last few weeks and the bye is already passed. Like, is Bowers a trade target for fantasy rest of season?
I definitely kick the tires on Bowers and see, what his manager is looking for him, because I think with Bowers, he got hurt towards the end of that first game, and he was not the same since. He tried gutting through it, didn't work. They finally said, you know what, let's let you rest, and that's what's happened. So now hopefully Bowers is coming back full strength. I mean, Pete Carroll had some very positive things to say about him today, and he's back practicing in full, all the good stuff that we want to hear. So I think Bowers is going to be that guy during the second half. I mean, the Raiders offense looked completely terrible without him. So I think he was one of the big missing pieces there. So you can kick the tires on something like that. But honestly, if you're looking to trade for a tight end, you're probably going to find a lot of people who still don't believe in Oronde Gadsden very much, and you might find the cheaper price on Gadsden. Or if you're the lucky guy who's got Gadsden and Trey McBride, you can maybe go trade Trey McBride for absolutely full price and just rely on Gadsden to be your tight end moving forward, so you can get a really elite piece for McBride.
You heard it here. Oronde Gadsden, the real deal. Trade Trey McBride. That's Dan Williamson's advice.
Spicy.
I mean, the pendulum has swung this year for Trey McBride, that he, is the title. He's getting the touchdowns that I had projected. Like, the expected touchdowns were there for McBride last year, but he was not actually converting those. So, Dan, this has been great. We'll continue to check you out on the Fantasy Empire. You can find me in season Man versus Machine with Wyatt Wednesday nights. Any last words for the people, Dan, before we sign off for the night?
Just keep grinding out there. If you are in managed leagues, I mean, every week, there's brand new players coming to light. You need to be the first one to grab those players, and just keep working that waiver wire, keep working the trade market, and you'll get there.
All right. On behalf of Dan, I'm Bradley. Until next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets, everybody.